very much, Madam President, and the members of the National Standing Committee. I would like to start with the co-optations that happened today to the leadership. As you know, some of the leaders left the party to form their own political party. So in terms of the constitution, certain positions have to be approved by the National Council. Certain positions have to be appointed where there is a gap. And the following have been appointed into the National Standing Committee in terms of Clause 9 of our Constitution. Engineer Elias Mzuri, Senator Mzuri, is the Deputy National Chairperson. Honorable Chimanikire, Gift Chimanikire, the Deputy National Organizing Secretary. As you know, Honorable Abednego Bebe is here and is the National Chairperson. Deputy Treasury, National Organizing Secretary. Deputy Treasurer General, again, that position is vacant, and it is now being occupied by Chief Ndlovu. Chief Ndlovu was the provincial chairperson for the South African province for the 2014 structures. The Deputy National Spokesperson, Honorable Kalipani Pugen, is now the Deputy National Spokesperson. And the chairperson for the Youth Assembly, as you know, Mr. Epmoch Dziwa of Vondo, is publicly stated that he is no longer a member of the party. So his deputy has taken over as the chairperson of the National Youth Assembly. It is a good surprise, ladies and gentlemen. I can anticipate that. And that person is Shakespeare Mokoi. Our Secretary for Elections is Mr. Manasa Tsvangirai, the young brother to our icon. We will be making some other announcement as we get clarity on where various officers stand. But these are appointments. Oh, yes. The Deputy National Secretary for Elections is Honorable Gandhi Mudzingwa, a long-time veteran of this struggle. There is a position that we will announce later regarding the women once we have resolved that. Some of the resolutions that we dealt with today, number one, dealt with Harvest House. Whose property is it? We saw in the court some people claiming that the Harvest House belonged to them. We reiterate that the Harvest House belongs to the Movement for Democratic Change as a party. And we will do everything that is in our power to safeguard our property. So there are matters that are before the courts, but we want to make it clear that the Harvest House or Morgan Tsvangirai House is not a private property owned by a company. It is owned by, it is a property that is owned by the party. And we will be able to prove that when the time comes in the courts of law. We also resolve that we are going to fulfill the Supreme Court judgment. And the Supreme Court was very kind to us in dealing with the document that is now called the settled document as the Constitution of the Movement for Democratic Change. That's number one. Number two, nullification of the Supreme Court of the presidency of Advocate Nelson Chamisa and everything that he did in his capacity as president. That includes signing agreements with other people. All that is nullified. We also discussed the issue of the recalls of councillors as well as members of parliament who have joined other political parties. We are going to proceed with this, but we will deal with this on a case-by-case basis. And as we have said and maintained before, we are not a vindictive leadership. We are not there simply to cause misery to people. We are there to safeguard the interests of the members of the MDC. So those who have joined other political parties cannot continue to represent our members in parliament. We want to reiterate here that the Supreme Court, the High Court, ruled that we can continue with our recalls. In other words, the interdict that sought to stop us from recalling was dismissed by Justice Chitapi. They've appealed against it, but they are appealing against nothing because they did not have the order in the first place. Then the other judgment by Justice Mafusire to say that we cannot replace members of parliament even after they expire, even as we face the expiry of the mandatory 90 days. We have appealed against that judgment. The effect of the appeal is to suspend the decision appealed against. And therefore, as things stand, nothing stops us from recalling our members of parliament and replacing our members of parliament. And we will exercise, if need be, we will exercise that lawful option. We received a report on the handover, takeover of Morgan Tsvangirai House. And this has been a subject of a lot of propaganda, which has unfortunately sucked in some of the countries in this world because of the images that were broadcast by our colleagues. But this is what took place. The Harvest House on the 4th of June 2020 and at 5 o'clock experienced a handover takeover, which involved security guards at this building. So 3 people came in, new security guards came in to relieve the 2 who were on duty. So they signed the handover takeover in a book that we call the occurrence book. This is the book that is at the reception where we record the handover takeover. It was smooth and it was without incident. And we reiterate that Advocate Nelson Chamisa was informed of that occurrence. That is why in my statement of that day, I referred to him. I referred to the letter that had been written by the acting president to him and specifically referred to him. In all the court papers, he did not file any papers to dispute that. So there was a smooth handover, takeover. Then after about 3 hours, I issued the statement. And after 3 hours after the statement, around 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, Charlton Wende and Denford Ngadzore and 45 thugs came to this building and tried to enter the building via the back door. They broke the door at the back, and the police who were on patrol intervened and called for reinforcement. We view it as malicious to suggest that the takeover of this building involved the army and the police. The army has been patrolling the streets of Harare since the declaration of the lockdown. And I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to take judicial notice of the fact that 60 meters from where we are, towards Parliament, you will see offices of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces. So the army does have its offices in this street, about 60 meters from where we are. And of course, when the noise was generated, they were naturally attracted by that, but they specifically refused to intervene in the dispute. And this was confirmed by the employees of Harvest House who took us to court. Washington Gaga, Zawamwe Shambare, Kudakwashe Matibiri, Edith Minyaka, and others. They took us to court and they specifically said that the police refused to intervene in the takeover of Harvest House. That is in their affidavit. They also said the army refused to intervene. And these are the affidavits that are before the courts of law. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be announcing, following the resignation of Honorable Obed Gutu, we will be announcing our spokesperson in due course after the consultations have taken place. We also discussed the petition that came from certain members of the National Council who wanted us to hold an emergency National Council. And our attitude is that we will hold the National Council once the circumstances permit gatherings involving these big numbers, because the National Council has 202 people. So we will hold the meeting of the National Council. The President will instruct us regarding the dates once we have received information about the gatherings. So we are going to have that meeting. We are not in a hurry to have that meeting because we had a meeting of the National National Council virtually on the 9th of May, and this meeting had made far-reaching decisions. But should members of the party want their leaders to conduct another meeting, we are open. We want to have this meeting, and we will announce the date in due course. Ladies and gentlemen, as the Movement for Democratic Change, as our president has said, we are now going to be embarking on the reform agenda. As you remember, the party had been on the reform trajectory with the formation of the National Election Reform Agenda under President Tsvangirai, the demonstrations that we held for electoral reforms. This had been packed, the issue of electoral reforms, social reforms, economic reforms, political reforms had all been shelved. We are now going to embark on the reform process, on the reform agenda, and we are going to be discussing with other political parties. In the standing committee, the president gave a report of the meeting that we had with the alliance partners. As you know, some time ago, I think 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting of 5 out of the 7 alliance partners. And this meeting was to discuss the future of the alliance. We did not conclude on this discussion, and we were supposed to carry the discussion on the 13th of June. Again, we couldn't because of certain logistical reasons. But we are committed to working with others. We are committed to creating synergies. The president and other senior leaders will be meeting leaders of civic society to brief them on what is happening within the party, to brief them on how we are bringing the party back to the rails. As you know, the party had been derailed and so on. So we want to bring back a leadership and a new politics that is based on rational disputation, and a new politics that abhors violence, use of hate language, and so on. A new politics that looks at the lives of the poor Zimbabwean people, that looks at the lives of the disadvantaged advantaged masses of Zimbabwe. And the leadership said in the meeting that we are going to go back to the founding objectives of the MDC. And the founding objective is one, and it was to fulfill the unfinished business of the liberation struggle. And this is what this leadership has committed itself to be doing. And I have to let you into various things that the leadership said, and so on. The need for tolerance, an apology that was given by my young brother Shakespeare to the president, and that was quite touching. And we are very grateful at the level of maturity displayed by Shakespeare in that regard. And please, we want everybody to join us in thanking him for what he has done. And I've been talking to him. He is very focused on the objective of this struggle, and you will be seeing more and more of him as he leads his youth assembly in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end here regarding the resolutions that we had today, and we would want to invite questions. Sorry, you can speak. Let me just let me answer on the question of Polad. We did not discuss that issue today. We discuss other issues. That issue is going to come, and we will advise you once we have discussed about it. are the police parked there enforcing COVID? Now, I want you to understand that they've been parked there before the takeover. So you cannot say that they parked because of the takeover. They have been parked in the streets for a long period before the takeover, and you must take judicial notice of that. But after the takeover, the peaceful takeover, and the violence that Wende tried to initiate, we obtained a peace order. And this peace order was obtained in the magistrate court, and it precluded certain members from coming to Harvest House and causing a breach of peace. It also specifically advised the police to maintain law and order and to make sure that the order is enforced. But the police that you see are not parked at Harvest House. The police you see are parked outside FBC. Just take judicial notice of that. And you have to take judicial notice again that the army has its offices 60 meters from here. And I did ask my colleagues to measure that because I was anticipating your question. And that is the 35 to 40 meters away from this building. We cannot control that. That has nothing to do with us. As far as we can see, they have not disturbed anybody. The engagement levels with Zanu PF. We are an opposition party, but you will find that we are an opposition party that is going to engage with the Zanu PF in the manner that Morgan Tsvangirai's leadership engaged with the Zanu PF. And the engagement with the Zanu PF was multifaceted, multi-pronged. So we are an opposition party. We are going to hold the government to account. We see that some of the members of the press ignored a very beautiful fight that was waged by our MPs in Parliament, and that dealt with the abduction of the girls. It was done, that debate was done by Honorable Tekeshe, Honorable Makonya, Honorable Vincent Tsvangirai, who had been the first MPs to heed our calls to come to Parliament. And I also debated on that. So yes, we are going to engage Zanu PF in Parliament. We are going to engage Zanu PF in the political life. But we are going to be advancing the interests of the Zimbabwean people, the real objective why we were formed. We know that there's been a lot of propaganda. You have my young brother Rohanya, who has forgotten that he's a journalist in the first place. Getting into propaganda. This is how he describes us. But what we really are, we are a leadership that is democratic. We are a leadership that is pro-reform. We are a leadership that is pro-change. We are a leadership that is not unnecessarily talkative. We are a leadership that plans. And you will see the leadership here. This is a serious leadership. And if I can just abuse this opportunity, Engineer Mzuri was the organizing secretary in 2008. And in 2008, we won both the presidency and the parliament and local government. And his deputy was Honorable Morgan Komich. They were the people who were in the organizing department, who planned Zanu PF downfall. The deputy president to Tsvangirai was Madame Coupe. And when Morgan Tsvangirai was forced into exile, she remained the acting president in this country at that period in time. And various of these leaders were doing one work or another. So we have an experienced leadership, a mature leadership, and so on. My friend from the Lovely TV, thank you very much for that question, which deals with people lost in Gweru. And I've heard people continuing saying that Mr. Mwonzora, you lost in Gweru. The same people don't say that Mr. Chamisa lost it to me in Harare. in 2014. So when you trace the history of defeat in elections, don't be selective. I also beat him. I also won at one point in time. That's not an important point. But what is the important point? The important point is that before we went to Gweru, the matter of Mashawire was heard in the High Court before Justice Mushore in March. In the standing committee, I then urged my colleagues to stop the Congress in Gweru. I was overruled. And democracy is the dictatorship of the majority. But I gave my legal advice. It was not listened to. On the 8th, I think, of May, Justice Mshore delivered her judgment, which had far-reaching consequences on the leadership. I made two suggestions. The first suggestion was that we cancel the Congress altogether. The second suggestion was that we convert the Gweru Congress into an extraordinary Congress. And in that regard, we had to change the Electoral College. Again, we were in the minority. And yes, I did contest in Gweru, well knowing that this was a waste of time. And I did tell my colleagues that it was a waste of time. History has absolved me. We are not here because of a loss in an election in a Congress that was nullified. We are here because the Supreme Court of Zimbabwe has ruled in favor of one of us. And that one of us is Elias Mashavira, who was our organizing secretary for Gokwe district. He was proven right by the courts. Because we are not an arrogant leadership, we are going to listen to people who have won in the court cases. We are not condescending towards him. So we are going to do the correct thing. We want constitutionalism. We want people to respect the rule of law. And this is what binds us. And this is what we want to do. And if you trace our history, each one of us here, you will find that it is a history which deals with constitutionalism, human rights, and the rule of law. And this is the passion that we are simply following. Realized two things. That after the demise of Dr. Tsvangirai, the party split into two factions. The one faction was the faction that held the Congress at Stanley Square. By the way, the Congress at Stanley Square was called an extraordinary Congress. It was not an inaugural Congress to form a party. And then it recognized another faction led by Advocate Chamisa that remained part of the MDC alliance. The attitude of the courts was that these were factions of one party. These were tributaries of one river. And therefore, the Supreme Court then said, return to the status quo ante as at the day after Tsvangirai died, but before the National Council. That meant that the two factions were now being brought into one party. So it is now one party. So these MPs are MPs which belong to one party now. And they belong to the group which had more members of parliament. They are now one. That is why this party is now being led by the one president who is presiding not over a faction, but over a united party with all its assets, including Harvest House, all the offices across the country, and the MPs and the councillors. So that is the legal position that as it stands. But let me take you back to history. In May 2018, I think, Advocate Chamisa presided over a discussion to recall Madam Kupe from Parliament. And I'm sure you remember that she was recalled from Parliament by Advocate Chamisa. Now, how do you recall somebody who is not a member of your party? You can only recall somebody who is a member of your party. So this has been one party, and they even went to court to stop her from using the name. And Justice Bere ruled that because it was a faction, it cannot bar another faction from using the assets of the party, including its name and its constitution. They have always been using this constitution, identical word for word. So the proper way of looking at it is that the Supreme Court reunified the party and is now one entity, which was led by Morgan Tsvangirai.
Thank you. Let me take the last round. I'll prioritize those that did not ask in the first question. You did ask, right?
No, I didn't ask.
Right, that's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So there's something about this number 4. What's happening? You're just asking questions in fours. Okay, you can show it.
Well, my name is Costa from newzimbabwe.com. You directed to Dr. Kupe. You polled 45,000 votes in the previous elections. That must be a very worrisome figure for someone who aspired to gain state power. What makes you so much convinced that this time around you will gain political capital so that you can attract a huge following?
Okay, number 2.
My name is Tafumane from Fly Media. It follows that maybe the MPs, because of the Supreme Court judgment and the powers that are vested in your constitution, you have the ability to call back those MPs. Do you have the same ability to call supporters to you? That's my question.
Okay. Number 3. Yes.
Well, Tony again from Checkmate TV. I'll direct my question back to Madam Kupe this time around. Madam Kupe, if you may clarify with us, in the interest of understanding history, we do know that by the time you had left the party, you were not in good standing with Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, that you now are coming out to represent fully, or that you had actually left way before Nelson Chamisa was even the president of the party. What was your relationship like with Morgan Richard Tsvangirai, and how do you feel representing the MDC-T, which gained where you gained 45,000 and you got 2.6 million or 2.1 million debatable? How does that make you feel to then say that you represent all these 110 MPs when these people are definitely denied you during the polls recently? How does that make you feel to say you lead them now?
Number 4? No, number 4.
My name is Anyway Yotam. I'm a freelance journalist. My question directed to Senator Mwonzora. You are referring to the late Tsvangirai and the Supreme Court judgments. How about the electorate? Are you going to take them to Supreme Court or to the late Tsvangirai's grave?
Okay, thank you. So you asked your question, did you?
Just one last one.
Sorry?
Are you going to give us another round?
Yeah, we'll come for more parts.
Okay.
One extra.
Yeah.
Okay, ask me.
We need to, after this way.
Yes, yeah, well, that's the last one. Okay, this is the last one, so just shoot it.
Well, there's a video that circulates on social media where you visited Morgan Tsvangirai's tombstone a couple of weeks ago. There have been reports and allegations that you were there for rituals. Would you like to take this opportunity to clarify what exactly was going on there?
Okay. All right, Madam President, SG.
Thank you very much. I want to start with one unscientific question that is being asked. And this unscientific question is what happens to the supporters? That Nelson Chamisa has more supporters than everyone. Now, and you go to the 2.1 million, 2.6 million debatable. Now, can I answer this by a rhetorical question? And the rhetorical question is that, did the MDC-T in the alliance not campaign as a unit? In other words, did we, Wamzuri, Wakomichi, myself, not campaign in that election for that 2.6 million votes? And how much of that do you give to us? How much do you attribute to us?
So you mean
and why do you say we contributed 0? I went and contested in Manicaland. That is the zone that I was given to contest to campaign for the president and the MPs. And in Manicaland, Nelson Chamisa polled 296,000 votes. To Mnangagwa's 292,000 votes, a difference of 4,000 votes. MDC Alliance won the presidency in Manicaland. How much of that do you attribute to my efforts and the efforts of the other comrades? Now, when we deal with the political parties, we are not dealing with individuals. We are dealing with the institution.
Sorry, Honorable Mwonzora,
Now, the
that wasn't the
institution.
question.
Wait, we'll give you an opportunity. Just let him
So
speak.
they are institutional votes. But again, another unscientific part of your assumption is that you have carried the census and you have found us with no support. Wait, because we have a surprise for you. We do have the support. And you will see when we conduct our Congress that we do have the support. Now, you were told by Watchman Ngube, who, by the way, polled something sometime, okay? You were told by Watchman Ngube that we would form a quorum at the Congress. And surprise, surprise, we have surpassed that by people who have confirmed to want to come to the Congress. And again, we were told that we will never be at Harvest House. We will never take this building. And where are we? We were told that we will not win a single case. Where are we? We were told that we will not be able to recall. Where are we? Why do you underestimate us, my brother? Remember, this is the leadership that handed Zanu PF its first uncontested defeat. Not just Zanu PF of Mugabe. Now, I just want to, I know the president will answer it herself, but I just want to go to the unscientific part about what was stated about what happened in Puera. About 5 minutes after we had left the homestead, Petsai Ruhanya tweeted that people were chanting Chamisa's name at Tsvangirai's graveside, and that a video was coming to prove his allegations. Up to now, I'm waiting for that video. Up to now, you have not seen that video where his name is being chanted. So these are some of the falsehoods that are said. A simple graveside eulogy, common in African tradition, is converted into a ritual. How do people do rituals in the broad daylight, in the presence of the deceased's relatives, his young brothers, his mother, his nephews, and his sekurus? They were there. This is how low our politics has gone. Who hasn't visited the grave? Who hasn't spoken at the grave? Who is it who hasn't done that? So I know the president is going to answer that, but Zimbabwe has more important things to think about. The opposition has more to think about than superstition. Our people are living in poverty and misery, and we need to take them away from this poverty and misery. And we do not do that by this petty thinking, in my respectful view. Thank you.